12:55, ready to start again?
Yes.
Welcome, Dörte. So, as I mentioned before the break, you have quite some experience in the European legislation sector, and you will also give us an update of that, and then also for the project you are involved in. I will just a moment, I will put the slides on, and then you just tell me when to move. There we have it.
Super.
Ready? When you are ready.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you so much for having me again. It's always a pleasure to work with Folkecenter a little bit, and this small wind conference has quite a certain tradition now. So I thought, and you can go to the second slide, to talk a little bit to this time, and you can change the slide, on the what's going on in Brussels very briefly on the REDIII debate. And I want to introduce also a current, almost finished study project entitled ComRES, and also a study which has been done by EREF and the Technical University of Vienna with support of the Austrian government, calling for more ambition on targets for 2030. And before I start with ComRES, I want to say we talked about it last year, and you all know we have this heavy legislative package under the Green Deal and with Repower EU, so with enhancing communications from the European institutions in view of the climate and also the crisis of the Russian aggressive war against Ukraine. So at current, some days ago, early last week, the European Parliament had voted on its amendment to the Renewable Energy Directive amendment, the so-called REDIII directive. And maybe very briefly, from EREF's point of view, also from the European Renewable Energies Federation, the spokesperson, if you want, of the small and medium-sized companies and projects. We think there's some good things for renewables in, not good enough when it comes to targets, but we at least have now 45% by 2030. And but we do still not have, and I don't think we will get it, is like in the old times, obligate binding national targets. We will still have only via governance regulation sort of indicative targets, and the Commission has to see of the national energy and climate plans what is does it account, if you put all the national plans together, does it give coherence towards the binding European target? That is one thing. We still try to work, but well, it's difficult. The other thing is that, and that's a little bit, I formulated a proposal for an amendment, and it was taken 1-to-1 by the rapporteur in the Parliament, and is now in the amendment report of the Parliament, that the rollout of renewable energies is of important public interest, and that everything has to be done in consequence to ease authorization and permitting procedure, which has been also part of the previous speaker's debate. So, and also we could also prevent, we in EREF, too harsh opposition against small hydropower, which was really tough, right? In the interest of our small hydropower producers and projects. And there's also, at least in the Parliament, is now a good status with which sustainable small hydro can continue living. On biomass, the debate is still not sure, but also there the Parliament weakened a bit the view of very, very strong sustainability criteria. For example, when it comes to wood, to trees, and the use of trees, but that would be too much now to go into detail. So I would like the next slide, because I thought this is a project to the heart of Folkecenter in a way. It's a Horizon 2020 project, so financed by the European Commission, and it is about introducing communal renewable energy and to enhancing concepts for community energy. And next slide, please. Next slide. So ComRES means community energy for the uptake of renewables in the electricity sector. And we in that project, we aim to increase the share of renewable in the energy sector coming from renewable energy communities. Thereby, we focus on facilitating development and supporting the implementation and enabling frameworks for renewable energy communities. And next slide, please. Next, yeah. So what energy communities are, you know, we can go to the next slide. Maybe that's interesting, or that's the basics. We started in September 2020, and it will end of February next year. And we have 16 partners from 9 countries. So the countries are Belgium, Germany, Italy, Latvia, Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, and Spain. The project partners you can see here, but we can continue because the next slide shows you a little bit where these little dots are, is where the project's partners are situated, and we have specific stakeholder desks in each country. And there we do a lot of thematic dialogues and policy roundtables with ministries, with communities, with developers, research and civil societies, and, for example, town halls. And there's to create hands-on solutions to overcome barriers. So we can continue. And there you see, again, which target regions we do have. You may find for your own country yourself. Sometimes it's the whole country, like Latvia. Sometimes it's a region like Apulia. And the model region is Piedmont. And the model region in Latvia, for example, is one municipality of Marupe, where there is the only, so far in that country, the only citizen PV project. Mm-hmm. And so we have a very big mix also between countries where community energy and energy cooperatives are well established, especially in Schleswig-Holstein, the region I'm just talking from today, and where there's not so much, or where there are more difficult surroundings, like in Poland also. So we can continue. Next slide. And yeah, what do we do? Very briefly, as I said, we have thematic workshops, we have country desk, and we have the roundtables. But behind that, we had these stages. We are now leaving the stage of financing and working on good and best practices. That is especially also with RESCOOP, a very wonderful NGO, if you want, in Belgium, and transfer of good practices. And before that, we had analyzed, and that helped us also in the respective debates on the renewable energy package in Europe, the legal gap assessment, and then we have analyzed potentials in those given regions for renewable energy communities and the barriers and drivers. So we can go to the next slide. So the enabling framework we made, it was done a special table for, let's say, good and bad. You can not so well see it, but you can read it later, I'm sure. So is there, for example, in the respective national legislation, a legal definition of renewable energy communities? And is there an enabling framework? Is there an assessment of barriers and potentials? And when I talk about all this here, and then we have dotted green is fairly good, up to red is not good at all, and but this is a gap which the Commission was very interested in, because everything we have put there is from the current Renewable Energy Directive. So when we looked into the enforcement of the Renewable Energy Directive, the current, we found a lot of gaps, which is helping the European Commission, hopefully, to assess what's really going on. And I hope they do it despite the fact that we get an amended Renewable Energy Directive. We have to see that. May be also interesting for you to frame some letters to the Commission. So we can go to the next slide for the sake of time. And that is where I give you more our web link. We have all reports from all regions, from the stakeholders, all analyses so far which have been done are available on that webpage, and might be very interesting for your region or where you are locality to maybe also enforce more renewable energy communities. And the next slide gives you again a little bit of our Twitter account and so forth. So we can go to the very next slide, because it was very interesting while this ComRES is still running, while the trilogue now is starting between the European Parliament, the Council and the European Commission on the REDIII directive. We tried to have some more scientific background still for the public discussion. That is then my head as EREF. And we asked the Austrian government and could interest them to give us a little bit of funding. And so we assessed a bit, what does it mean to have more ambitious 2030 targets? What I will now briefly show to you, and that shows the heading in the next slide, is the policy recommendations from this exercise. Whereas when you go then also on the webpage of EREF, you find also the scientific modeling. How do you have to strengthening energy efficiency targets in order to get more renewable targets per situation in the European Union, and that was done obviously by the Technical University of Vienna. We had a certain agenda. Next slide for that. So I will share with you some of the policy recommendation, and I will go a little bit in this permitting and in the overriding public interest project for attitudes, which we have also worked on in the study. And as I said before, which are now also, which you can find now in the amended report by the European Parliament. So when we go to the next slide, there is an 2 years old already renewable from the Renewable Network Platform, a barrier database, which we found is still very valid. And there you can see what is all, what administrative and what grid barriers, grid issues you can have. And you can read that for yourself. And also that you have probably already today talked about it, the competition with other public goods, environmental and species, then we have military and aviation, and spatial planning as such and its procedural issues is blocking a lot of, especially is not simplifying development, especially for smaller projects. When we look in the over next slide, the policy recommendation, also we really think that it's still lacking that renewables and efficiency are really translated into crisis mitigation as the ways out. That is there's still a lot of nice words, but not so much effect. And again, overriding public interest has to be installed for renewables in all energy policy and legal reform processes on European and on national level. That leads naturally to fast-track permitting of renewables. And on the next slide, we are now already on, you have to continue. And again, So next, again, one more slide, please. So, nee, now you're about verse 2 fast, Daniele. One back. We have to have still energy market designs in the European Union fit for renewables. Spatial planning, that's an issue. The European Union has no real authority from our treaties to streamline that. They will give recommendations, but spatial planning is member states' issue. We have to look into the hydrogen uptake. You might have already talked about it, but what's green hydrogen, what's renewable hydrogen, what is pink hydrogen? There is still a lot of strangeness around that, and the uptake must be done in a reasonable way and focusing primarily on renewable hydrogen. In that respect, we are also happy as EREF that the current report from the European Parliament is asking not to follow too strict barriers for example, old wind power plants who are out of any public support scheme, and that they can participate in an electrolysis business model. So we will see if that keeps on. The Commission was very, very strict. On one hand, we understand that, but because additionality, so we did not want to have a situation where everything is sucked up by hydrogen, and we don't have, and we have a lack of renewable energy uptake in the electricity sector. We still think that member states, or we found out collective self-consumption of renewables and individual self-consumption is still sometimes really disregarded. And the country I'm coming from in the European, in Germany, the last 8 years were pretty much lost years for many things we could have done much faster in this respect for small and for self-consumption models. And for avoiding too high grid connection fees, for example. Enhancing cross-border renewables cooperation should be done. And and again, skilled labor would be skilled programs for laborers, especially in regions like in Silesia in Poland, or in Germany or in Spain, which had a lot of coal mining business. You have good engineers there, which you and good workers, which you can skill on the renewable world. Next slide, please. The next slide. Mm-hmm. Also,
at the moment it's blocked.
Oh, sorry. I can continue. Yeah, thank you. The overriding public interest for renewables is this legal recognition that it should be regarded in all aspects. So I've said that, and the next slide gives some principles where it should be applied, not only to PV, wind, and green hydrogen, but also to small hydropower and some biomass-related biogas things, if it's sustainable. And it should be included as a dedicated objective under the National Energy and Climate Plans. And therefore, also rules on state aid, taxonomy have to be reviewed with this overriding public interest principle in mind. And on the next slide, I just want to say there are measures going on in the European Commission also to enhance permitting for renewable projects. And we hope that they are not only looking to big projects, but also asking for planning and permitting easing structures for small projects. Next slide is, that I have already said. So when you go to the next slide, there are some recommendations we had put into that report. And maybe to conclude, because I certainly have to respect my 20 minutes. It's the good news is the good news is actually the effect of the bad news. I think there's much more openness also in countries who put all their trust into the big monopolies or oligopolistic energy supply structures, that they start to think, okay, there are some low-hanging fruits when citizen projects or smaller projects with fast permitting could help to ease the stress on the electricity sector, and it could also help to ease the stress with sector coupling, etc., on the heating and cooling sector. So we see there is a shift also in the debate. That's fairly clear, even countries like Poland. But what we also found out is that the administrative, legislative governing structure of a country can be a stumbling block by itself. For example, in ComRES, we found out when you have municipal power which has own authority, has maybe even own access to public financing and own discretion to act, in these municipalities, in those countries, again, such as in Italy or in Germany or wherever, then you can kickstart a lot of development. Whereas countries where the municipality authorities are very restricted in their authority, it's very, very, very difficult because the red tape is then on levels much higher, and the higher level is not rooted in the ground of that given village or town. So that we find also, but that's a problem actually Europe cannot really solve. That's a problem of the constitution or whatever of the given state. So if you have such a country, you must hard work that they get more autonomy to act in the given country. So with that, again, I'm very happy I could talk to you. And yeah, if you have questions, please go ahead.
Are there any questions?
Thank you.
We are a little slow in reacting between the screen and so because we had some technical issues, but I don't dare to restart the computer now. So I actually have a question. Since you are more in the EU setup, there has been a lot of discussion in last autumn about green nuclear and taxonomy. And how did that ended up, and did it change anything now, the current situation?
Yeah, it's a very difficult situation we are facing now, and there are now several court cases being introduced or will be introduced to the European Court against the latest delegated act issued as a regulation issued by the European Commission on the inclusion of gas and nuclear as taxonomy able. So that is it's very bad. I know because I work in the background for the Austrian government. The Austrian government will go to court in an annulment procedure. It will be supported by Luxembourg, and I also learned that Spain is thinking of introducing annulment procedures. And also members of the European Parliament, at least some, who might also themselves go to the court with an annulment against this regulation. And the biggest obstacle legally, and as I can see it, is that the Commission has exceeded its power to do such a delegated regulation, because for what they have done, first of all, there was no real enabling act in the taxonomy, in the real law itself. And second, that they have missed, they had to talk to stakeholders, member states, and so forth. What they have not done is, for the latest delegated act, the most crucial one, they have not done a public consultation. they have disregarded the arguments of the various governments and other stakeholders against, especially nuclear, and they have also used the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, which is the research center, as I said, of the institution, but it is in nuclear. It is a very, very, in my view, it's a biased institution. They had then called for a panel of experts. There was a call for experts in order to have a working group on these issues. But when you look who was on the panel, there was just one, and that was a nature protection NGO. It was not an energy, a renewable energy NGO. So there was also an underrepresenting of oppositional power, let's say, in that expert group. So all of that together is now in front of the European Court. Some of the cases are interesting, like Greenpeace and others from Germany have introduced a complaint, not so much based on the normal annulment rules of our treaty, but we do have a special link to the Aarhus Convention on public participation and in environmental matters. And there is a new directive in Europe, or an amended regulation, sorry, which gives more rights to environmental NGOs to attack non-legislative acts in the European Union which disregard their interest in. I make it now very blunt. So it is still all under consideration. It will take at least 1.5 years at the European Court, and it's always very difficult with at least for the NGO side if the case will be really admitted, or if the court will decide it's not admissible. When it goes further, which will be the case for the member states, which they are per se always admitted to the court, that will take, as I said, 1.5 years, and the Commission probably will go into appeal to the European Court of Justice, and so maybe in 2.5 years we will know if this delegated regulation is correct or not.
Yeah, thanks for the update. It's always nice to have some internal insights on these topics.
With pleasure.
Yeah. Any question? Yeah, there is Fritz. Yeah, just unmute yourself.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. How do I say that? If you want to have financed a research program in the EU, you have to wait for a call. In the National Energy Renewable Energy Laboratories in the USA did a study on the potential of small and medium wind turbines in the USA. Is it possible to initiate such research in the EU? Do we have to wait for a call?
Yeah, when it is a project which will be beyond 50,000 euro, I make it now very, very rough, there will be the need for a call. What would be interesting for you is maybe to look into not the big research programs like under Horizon, even though look into their work program for this year. I don't have it in my mind, but if you go on the Horizon, on the page of the DG for that, you find when will be the next calls, and you find also what sub-calls will be and what is the objective. But one call possibility I would rather see is the LIFE program, LIFE, of the European Commission from DG Environment, where you might have a little bit easier access to funding. And the third option is that maybe you could contact the European Environmental Agency in Copenhagen to see if by chance they would have some interest in funding. That's the EEA.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well,
anything more? It seems so. Well, thank you very much, Dörte, for the presentation.